In today's session, we'll be looking at double entry bookkeeping system. We already looked at what double entry is in our first chapter. Right now, in this video, we will examine double entry bookkeeping even further, and we'll look at how different types of transactions are recorded in the double entry bookkeeping system. So first of all, let's have a quick recap of what double entry bookkeeping is. Double entry bookkeeping states that for every single type of transaction, there needs to be two effects. For example, if there's an account that is giving, there will be another account that is receiving. And when these both things, giving and receiving, take place together, a transaction is successful. And thus, as you can see, there are two effects with every transaction, which is the double entry system. That double entry, one is a giving entry, one is a receiving entry. So for each and every single type of account that we have, for each and every different type of asset, liability, income, expense, debtor or creditor, we'll have a separate ledger account. What is a ledger account? Let's look at it. So this is a ledger account. What is its purpose? We'll look at it shortly. First, let's just see what the statement means. That we have separate ledger accounts for each type of asset, liability, income, expense, and all our debtors as well as creditors. For example, let's look at the example of assets. Assets is anything that the business owns. For example, our business owns three different types of assets: property, land, and machinery. So for each of these three different types of assets, we'll have three different types of ledger accounts. For example, ledger account for property, ledger account for land, and ledger account for machinery. Okay. Similarly, for different types of liabilities, incomes, expenses, we'll also have different ledger accounts. Now let's look at debtors and creditors. These are people that either owe us money or people to whom we owe money. And for for every entity or individual that falls into our debtors and creditors, we'll have a separate ledger account under whom we'll record the transaction that happens between the business and the other entity that owes us money or to whom we owe money. So this is a ledger account where our transactions are recorded. As you can see on the top, we have the account name. So if I have a machinery account, then this account will be called machinery account instead of writing over here account name. Then over here we have two different parts. The left side, which is our debit side, and the right side, which is our credit side. So whenever our account is giving something, giving to another account, it is recorded on the credit side. And whenever our account is receiving something from another account, then that is recorded on the receiving side, on the debit side. So any time the account is receiving, it is written in the debit side. Anytime our account is giving to another account, it's written on the credit side. We'll look at what these titles, date, details, dollar, and folio mean in our further examples. First of all, let's look at how these ledger accounts have evolved over the years. So when our system started, we used to record it in books. So we had an accounting book, on each and every separate page was a separate ledger account. Page number 1, for example, property account. Next page will be machinery account. Third page will be capital account, and so on. But and then after a few years and decades, we changed to a folder system where we had a folder, and as we needed, we used to keep adding pages between the folder, and each of the pages were a ledger account or continuation of the ledger account. This was more convenient than the book, because what if you are on page number 1 and recording your transactions, and after 2 months you see your page has been filled, so you'll have to continue on a further page will be much later. Instead, if you have a folder, then you can just add a page in between. And obviously, as several more decades passed, now we use our computer softwares to record the double entry bookkeeping system, to record everything that comes under double entry bookkeeping, which is very convenient, fast, and very accessible too. So now let's look at an example that will help us understand what our date, details, folio, and and dollar titles mean. So Alex over here wants to start his business. So on January the 2nd, he plans that he will allocate $80,000 into the bank account to start his business. So first of all, we have a capital account. What is the capital account doing? It is giving $80,000. To whom? The bank account, which is receiving $80,000. So first let's focus on the capital account. It is giving $80,000. And what did we look at? That giving goes under the credit column. So let's focus on the credit column of capital. So firstly we have date, which comes under the credit column. So we'll start by writing the year, which is 2021. Then we'll write the date, which is January the 2nd. Then under details, we will write that which account is our capital account giving to. Which account is it giving to? The bank account, as bank account is the account that is receiving the 80,000. So let's write over here bank account, which is the receiving account. Under the credit column, we'll write $80,000. Similarly, in the bank account, which is receiving, we will go to the debit side, because debit side is for receiving. So you'll start by writing the date. So we have the year, then the day on which the transaction is taking place, January the 2nd, then capital account. We'll write capital account under details, because that is the account that is giving us, that is giving the bank account the $80,000. And under dollars, we'll write $80,000. Perfect. Now let's look at what folio is. So when we used to have books of accounting, what used to happen is, if I have my capital account that is on the first page and I write over the bank account, so you will need to go hunting when you're reading the books, where is the bank account in all these pages. So what we used to do is, we used to make a folio column where I used to write that, for example, my bank account is on the 7th page, then I'll just write folio 7. And if my capital account is on the 2nd page, then in the bank account I'll write folio 2, so that I can look at where's the other part of this transaction. So as you can see over here under capital, we have credited the bank. We have credited it with $80,000 that has been given to the bank. Now where's the bank account? On the 7th page. So we'll write folio 7. But this is redundant in today's day, and that won't be even asked in your exam, so we'll not be focusing on that. This was only for understanding the importance of folio. So now let's look at another transaction to understand how the ledger works. So now as the business progresses, Alex thinks we need a new machinery. So on January the 5th, Alex buys $15,000 worth of machinery. Where does this money come from? The bank account. So the bank account is this time giving $15,000. So because the bank account is giving, the bank account will be credited. So let's go to the credit column of the bank account. So first we'll start by writing the year 2021, then the date, which is January the 5th. Now which account is receiving? The machinery account. So let's write over here machinery. How much worth of machinery is the machinery account receiving? $15,000. And that's it. That's our transaction under the credit column of bank account. Now let's go to the debit side of a machinery account. The machinery account is receiving. Thus we are going to the debit side. So over here we'll start by writing the year again, 2021. Then we'll write the day on which our transaction took place, January the 5th. Where did the machinery account receive the $15,000 from? The bank account. So let's write over here bank account, and how much? $15,000. So this is a simple short example of how our ledgers work and how they record the double entries. So as you can see, there was a double entry for each and every single type of transaction. Over here, the transaction between capital and bank account had a double entry that took place both in the capital account as well as in the bank account. Similarly, between the machinery account and the bank account too. We have several parts over here. The account name that we need to write on the top. Then we have the debit side on the left and the credit side on the right. We have 4 titles that are there both under debit as well as credit. And we need to always start by writing the date and then go ahead with the details and the dollars as in the amount. Now one last thing, our debit is also written as DR. So you don't need to write debit always, you can just write DR, which is also fine. And similarly, our credit is also written as CR. Okay, so we don't need to always write debit and credit, because we'll be writing a lot of debit credit as we go through our accounting syllabus. So it's abbreviated to DR and CR. Thank you.